Loneliness is not being alone with no one around you. It is not being alone in a crowd with no one to talk to or no one that understands you. Loneliness is having immortality and spending eternity forever separated from the one you love. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Apingo and I am the chain-smoking writer. Here we share the myths, legends and histories of the Chinese people, from the first creation myth to the last imperial dynasty. More than 6,000 years of story, one video at a time. Now if you would like to join us on this journey through time, please, I would highly suggest that you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you will not miss any video when it drops. Now, in the previous episode, we shared the story of Hou Yi and how he saved humanity from a extinction level catastrophe by shooting down 9 of the 10 suns that were wreaking havoc in the skies. Now, of course, the repercussion of it was Hou Yi was banished to the mortal realm by a very, very unhappy mother and most probably the greatest Karen of her time. Now, although Hou Yi was banished to the mortal realm to live and die as a mortal, he was well respected and beloved by all. I mean, why not? This fella literally saved the world single-handedly. Who needs the Avengers where you got, like, the OG badass? Now, having witnessed his skills and now that Hou Yi was one of us, or one of them, people from all over the land, came to him and begged him to take them in as his disciples so they could learn his skills, his crazy good skills. And of course, when you have this big crowd and huge numbers of people, there will be some unscrupulous and less than ideal characters mixed in. And it was at this time that a crafty rogue by the name of Chang'e became a disciple of Hou Yi. Now, having settled down in his life on the mortal realm and taking in disciples and basically building a life for himself, Hou Yi soon got married and, settled down. His wife was a lively and clever lady named Chang'e, and not only was Chang'e an exceptional beauty. One could almost say that she is the most beautiful human woman in the world at that time. She also had a heart of gold, helping anyone who came to them for help, who came to her and Hou Yi for help. She would help anyone. She would, take care of the elderly, take care of the children. Basically the perfect woman that everyone, anybody, any man would want to take as a wife. Well, heck, I would. Now, apart from, hunting and passing his skills to his disciples, Hou Yi spent the rest of his time with his lovely wife. They were practically inseparable, and their love for each other kind of became the envy of the land. But as mortals, Hou Yi realized that, there would come a day where they would be separated by death. And Hou Yi really dreaded the inevitable, and he wanted to find a way where he could, live in bliss forever with Chang'e, whom he, loved with all his heart and all his life. So Hou Yi, or Yi, remembered that Xi Wang Mu, or the Queen Mother of the West, who resided on Kunlun Shan or Kunlun Mountain, had these pills of immortality who granted any mortal who took them the ability to live a long life or even to live forever. So he decided that he would set off on a journey to beg her for some of these pills for himself and his wife Chang'e. Now, Kunlun Mountain was surrounded by a ring of water that would not float anything. Even if a feather fell on it, it would just sink. And outside this ring of water was a ring of volcanoes that burned ceaselessly all year round. It never stopped burning. And the heat from these volcanoes was enough to melt rocks and turn them into lava. Now, of course, these were, great obstacles that were put there so that the mortals would not go, disturb the Queen Mother or the deities that resided on Kunlun Mountain. However, with his indomitable will and exceptional skills, Yi or Hou Yi braved the ring of mountains and crossed the ring of water, and he scaled the cliff of Kunlun. Now, this cliff, the Kunlun mountain cliff, was tall, and in fact, it was said that it was 13,113 paces and 6 inches high. Now, that's a surprisingly specific figure, but yeah, that's what it was said and what was recorded. So, Yi, scrambled up this cliff, he climbed up this cliff, and he finally reached the palace of the Queen Mother of the West, or Si Wangmu. And he presented his case to Si Wangmu and begged her to grant him his wish. Now, having great respect for the role that Yi played in saving mankind and saving the world, basically, and also knowing that his banishment and his exile from the celestial realm was really unjustified, and it was the result of, well, to put it diplomatically, misplaced grief. The Queen Mother, decided to grant him a pill of immortality. So the Queen Mother said to Yi, she explained to Yi about the origins and the process of producing a pill of immortality. Now, what she said was, the immortality pill is the refined essence of the immortality fruit that grows on the tree of immortality. There's a lot of immortality. And it takes 3,000 years for the tree of immortality to flower, and a further 3,000 years for the fruit to grow from the flower. And finally, a further 3,000 years was needed to refine the immortality fruit into its essence in pill form. And the Queen Mother said to Hou Yi, now this is the last pill of immortality in my possession. Now, if it is taken whole, the mortal being, any mortal being who take this whole pill, will become a deity and join the rank of gods in the celestial and heavenly realms. Now, if it is shared between two people, it will grant them immortality to live forever in the realm of man. Now, this last pill I grant to you, great savior of man, for you have earned my respect and admiration, and let it be a small token of my sympathy of your unjust fate. Now, Yi was, of course, overjoyed and ecstatic that the Queen Mother of the West so readily gifted him with such a priceless gift. And of course, he couldn't wait to go back to his wife to share the great news with her. And so he rushed home and shared the great news with Chang'e, and they decided that they will take the pill together on the anniversary of their wedding day. And Chang'e would, be the custodian of the pill until that day. So Chang'e, took the pill and put it into a little lockbox that she kept on her dressing table. Now, however, if you remember, we mentioned that one of Hou Yi's disciples was an unscrupulous and crafty rogue. Now, Pang Meng overheard this conversation and he hatched his own cunning plan.
I've got a plan so cunning you could put a tail on it and call it a weasel.
So, a few days after Hou Yi returned from his expedition to the Kunlun Mountains, he arranged a hunting trip with all his top disciples. And being the best among all of Hou Yi's disciples, Pang Meng, of course, was included in this expedition. However, for some reason, Pang Meng was struck down by an illness and was unable to join the party. But as soon as the party left the settlement, Pang Meng discarded his act of sickness and, stormed into Hou Yi's house, waving his great big sword around and threatening Chang'e, hand over the pill of immortality or else. Now, being cornered and with her life in mortal danger and having no one to turn to because he was out on a hunting trip and all the good fighters were out with him. So Chang'e had to make a decision, and she did make a critical decision with the glint of the blade in her eyes. She turned around slowly and took the pill out from the lockbox. And before Pang Meng could react, Chang'e popped the pill into her mouth and swallowed it whole. Now, the reason Chang'e did that was that she decided in that split second that instead of handing over the pill and grant immortality to such a treacherous man that would no doubt cause chaos for mankind, for all eternity, Chang'e would rather suffer the pain of separation from the man she loved till the end of time. She decided to sacrifice herself for the good of mankind, much, in the way that her husband sacrificed his godhood and immortality to save humanity. Now, after swallowing the pill of immortality, Chang'e's body immediately grew lighter and lighter, and she started to levitate above the ground. And before she knew it, she broke through the window of the house and continued floating higher and higher in the sky, leaving the land and the man she loved so much further and further behind. Now, of course, she continued floating and rising, higher and higher up into the sky. And it was at this time that she, thought that, I can't go so far from the land. I still want to be able to see my beloved husband. And so in order to stay, as close as possible to her beloved husband E, Chang'e decided that she would land on the moon instead of going all the way up to the celestial realms. On the cold hard surface of the moon, there was nothing to do and no one to talk to. All there was on the moon was the lunar frost palace, which was made of beautiful crystals, but just as cold and hard as her environment. And apart from the palace, there was the jade rabbit that had lived there for as long as time itself. And the only sound that would accompany them was the thumping of Wu Gang's axe on the self-healing laurel tree that he was sent to cut down in silence as punishment for a previous transgression. Now there, Chang'e would live in isolation for eternity, forever looking down upon the realm of man, aching for her beloved husband until time runs out. Now, back on Earth, when Yi or Hou Yi returned from his hunting expedition, he realized that there was no familiar silhouette at the door, welcoming him home, and no peals of delighted laughter that would greet him. Instead, all he saw were sobbing serving maids, that rushed out of the door to immediately tell him what had happened, to report to him the treachery of Pang Meng. And Hou Yi, of course, was immediately filled with that famous rage and fury that made him shoot the suns out of the sky. And he wanted nothing more, to draw that blood-red bow once again and shoot the living daylights out of Pang Meng, deep in his deep, dark, treacherous heart. But Pang Meng, by this time, has long since escaped. He has long ran away and no one could find him. He was nowhere to be found. In fact, even in history, there was no records of where he ran to. Now deep in his grief for the loss of his beloved wife, Yi could do nothing more than looking up to the sky and calling out Chang'e's name in desperation over and over again. And it was Mid-Autumn's night and the moon was close to land. If you know, Mid-Autumn is the one night in the year where the moon was closest to the land in its orbit around Earth. is also a night when the moon shines the brightest and it looks the biggest. And Hou Yi, while looking at the moon, saw a shadow moving on the bright moon's surface, and it looked very much like his beloved wife Chang'e. And it felt as if that Chang'e was calling out to him as well from the moon. So he started chasing after the moon to get a closer look, but no matter how fast or how far he ran, he could not close the distance between himself and the moon. And when he finally realized that it was a futile attempt to chase the moon down, you can just imagine the dejection and the frustration and the sadness that Hou Yi would feel in his heart. When he finally decided that it was time to give up, he felt that the only thing that he could do, in his last desperate attempt to preserve that little bit of connection between himself and his wife, was to go into Chang'e's favorite garden at the back of their house, and he set up an altar there and laid out all of Chang'e's favorite foods. And there, in front of the altar, he poured out his heart and expressed his feelings and his love for his wife, hoping against all hope that Chang'e would be able to hear him from the moon. And this separation, this one incident, caused the pain of two people that they will have to suffer alone till the end of time. And this is true loneliness, when you know that the one you love is out there, but you are separated, for eternity, and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, when the people found out what happened, word spreads, they too, all of them, set up altars in their own back gardens and placed offerings to Chang'e in remembrance of the sacrifice that she made and in remembrance of all the good that she had done. And over time, this practice, over generations, over millennia, this practice evolved, and it became a tradition to worship the moon and Chang'e on Mid-Autumn's night, when the moon is fullest in the sky. And this practice is still practiced today. We Chinese still celebrate the Mid-Autumn's festival or the Moon Festival. And of course, over the years, there have been new significance attached to this day, this festival, throughout the different dynasties and throughout the different periods in history. So now we eat mooncakes, we have lanterns and stuff like that. But the origins of this festival, this celebration, lay in this story of Chang'e and her sacrifice to save mankind from a treacherous man. Now, I hope you enjoyed this story or this video, and in fact, it is one of my personal favorites. I still feel that little sharp stab of pain whenever I read or tell it. Yeah, if you like this story, please, it will help the channel out a lot if you could just smash the like button. Yeah, and if you would like to continue on this journey with us through time and you don't want to miss any episode, I would highly suggest that you click on the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you'll be updated whenever a new video drops. And if you would like to say something to me, you would have any feedback or any thoughts, leave your comments down below in the comment section. I read through every single one of them and I try to answer every single one of them. And if you would like to support the channel out on other platforms like Patreon or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, all the links are down below in the description box. Well, before we end this episode, this is actually the fourth last episode in this series of Myth of China before we move on to the next series in a couple of weeks' time. So if you haven't been catching up on what's been going on with the stories and from the first creator until what's happening now, visit the channel page. There are playlists there which breaks down the entire 30 episode series into more digestible bits, so you might want to check it out. And with that, I guess we are done for today, and I will see you in the next episode.